because the storyline is what defines the whole story.
The movie Moana did capture the Polynesian culture for the most part. There are movies that may not.
Out of the sea, wish I could be.
Because if we look at older movies that Disney has done, let's take, say for example, Tiana and the Frog with Moana, they actually got the culture very right.
I reckon you want a kiss?
And I feel like the original movie it was so good that you can't even compare the live action to the original movie.
Just like he found all of us.
It's like he found me.
In my opinion, it's probably one of the best live actions of Disney. And they kind of, it's like not half and half, but it's almost like a balance. The other day, I was watching the remake of The Little Mermaid. However, upon watching it, I realized that sometimes Disney likes to prioritize things like representation. However, that could be at the sake of the actual storyline. Now, while I think that representation is important, do you guys think that that should be at the cost of the storyline or not?
No, because the storyline is what defines the whole story. So, if things like cultural representation are given the higher priority, it could result in the whole plot being lost, and it would make the story not enjoyable to listen or read.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And if we're making a live action movie of the original, you're not making a sequel or a different plot. You're basically using the same plot, but just using CGI, humans, and I agree, because most often when Disney does live actions, they change them a lot. Because an example would be The Little Mermaid, a very recent the live action, which is very recent. The race of Ariel and her sisters was changed to the Caribbean because of one side character that didn't have a lot of screen time in the original movie, Sebastian. And this is an issue because even because they changed the whole entire setting of the movie to fit one character that didn't have even half the movie's screen time, but instead meanwhile what they could have done was give us a reason why Sebastian was in the Danish Sea in the original movie, or change his species entirely. So I agree with you, and I would like to go back to the point where Ariel's race was changed. So Ariel is as we all know, is a prominent main character who is really iconic in the Disney world. And I feel like the original movie was so good that you can't even compare the live action to the original movie. And because of the race change, while it's inherently a good idea, I feel like remaking an iconic Disney means to live up to the standards that it portrayed when it was first released. And changing the race meant that the entire duration of the movie was focused on representation rather than the actual mermaid story. And because of this, I feel like watching The Remake of The Little Mermaid was tiring, and it felt like a general mermaid movie instead of that iconic, really famous Little Mermaid movie that we're all used to seeing.
Yeah, and going back to what he said about racial representation, sometimes I agree, I understand why movie directors might do this. It's because they want to bring to light more underrepresented cultures. However, sometimes I feel like they go too far to the point of misrepresenting, and this does cause a lot of controversies and frustrations. What do you think of this?
Yeah, so with Aladdin, in my opinion, it's probably one of the best live actions of Disney. And they it's like not half and half, but it's almost like a balance, almost like representation and the original. So I understand your point that I think Aladdin's one of my favorite Disney movies, the live action I'm talking about. Yeah. However, there is a lot of representation in Disney movies, but let's talk about how misrepresentation might affect the live actions and the way that Disney tries to show these movies. Like, I feel like Aladdin, it kind of misrepresents the Middle Eastern culture that it's trying to show. Number one, because of the kinds of clothes that the characters wear, and also just the entire stereotype in general. I feel like Aladdin was a really watered down version of Middle Eastern culture, and it was a very like European view of it. I just don't think that's how real Middle Eastern culture is.
I agree, because if we look at older movies that Disney has done, let's take, say for example, Tiana and the Frog with Moana, they actually got the culture very right, because Tiana, it shows that she's working very hard to get a restaurant, but it's very hard for her until she meets her lover, because back in that, a lot of Black people didn't have the financial abilities as white people did because of slavery, but they also showed the culture of New Orleans, especially in the early 1900s. And another good example of this is Moana. As we can easily see in her name, Moana means the sea in her culture. And if you take a look at You're Welcome, Maui has a specific line which says, I buried an eel, I killed an eel and buried guts, now we have coconuts. This actually correlates straight to a mythology where an eel tried to date a woman, but the woman didn't like that. She told Maui, and Maui killed the eel. And he buried the eel's guts, and now we have coconuts. So before like 2020 or before more live actions were being made, they actually did get the research on point and did represent the cultures very well, but now they're getting more sloppier with it.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned how they were getting sloppier, and how in the past or in the previous years that they were keeping up the good work with representation. And like how you said Moana means the sea. I would like to talk about how, although the movie Moana did capture the Polynesian culture for the most part, there are movies that may not do the same. Now we can talk about things like Anastasia, and it's a very prominent movie because it actually happened. It was during the Imperial Russia time, like almost 100 years ago. And while it was a really interesting movie, I just feel like it didn't talk about the actual events of the Rolo and his murder. Yeah. And I feel like that might lead to some misrepresentation, just like we've seen in things like Aladdin and other movies that we talked about. So what are your guys' thoughts about misrepresentation and Anastasia? Yeah, like how the royal family got executed. If we're not gonna include and it's real, like the royal family getting executed. So if we're not gonna include that into the movie, like there's no point in making it and like spending your time on it, because you need factual information. And if someone were to watch that movie not knowing, and you probably can do a project on it not knowing that their information can be wrong.
Yeah. I have another personal story to share. So one of my favorite movies was a historical fiction movie. It was called Pocahontas on Disney. So the way they portrayed the Native Americans, it was like how you would usually see them in the movies, wearing like leaves and rags. However, this movie had the setting of the middle of winter, and there's no possible way that people would be wearing so many light clothes when it's so cold outside.
Yeah, and I would like to actually talk more about Pocahontas, because I feel like one really big issue in that movie is the way that they show Native Americans. This is a pretty sensitive topic, and Disney should have known that, but I feel like, again, Disney just did not do its research correctly. Because although Pocahontas did marry John Smith, they romanticized it so much in the movie in comparison to in real life, how it was more for diplomacy and kind of like other reasons that were not related to romantic reasons. And I just feel like the way that Disney showed Pocahontas and the love story between John Smith, it just wasn't accurate, and it overlooks what actually happened during the setting of Pocahontas.
I do believe in what you said because when we see this, it also shows that Pocahontas did not live for a very long time, and while it did accurately depict, accurately depict on how the British were very harsh toward the colonists, it did not portray the battle between them correctly, nor did it make sense in the setting.
So I would also like to bring light into the new Rapunzel. Actually, sorry, not the Rapunzel, the Snow White movie that is coming out, or it already came out. I'm not sure about that, but I do think that the entire movie is a flop.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just think the actress was not passionate about showing Snow White for how it was represented in the original movie, and she just completely brushed away that sort of like soft part of Disney in order to add in, again, representation, especially feminism, which is important, but you can make separate movies on feminism. You don't have to change such an iconic movie for the sake of adapting new crimes. I just don't think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. When they first show like a little teaser of Snow White, I really thought that it looked amazing and the graphics looked really good. But when it was like the interviews and when it was the time to release globally, I feel like the actress like ruined it, and also starring Gal Gadot as the villain was really bad because she already has a bad reputation of being a bad actress. But with the main actress Snow White, I feel like with her portrayal as in the movie was not that good, and during the interview she said like the prince was a stalker to the princess, which like in any folktale of the prince and the princess, I would think of it as like the prince is trying to protect the princess.
I agree, but unfortunately, if you look at fairy tales a lot, they weren't made to romanticize the fact of like, oh, having a love interest. They would just show the main thing about them was to show a moment that you would always need a man to come save you. And in modern times, with a lot of activists for women rights, I feel like they would take this lightly as okay, just perpetuate the safety. They would work it as we need to this is incorrect and I don't like this. We need to stop this right now because yes, the prince in some eyes may be a creep, especially considering that we now know the age difference between them. But I think they could have left the movie alone, or at least aged down the hers a bit more to age down the priest a bit more, to not upset anybody, as Disney is a large company, and B, just to keep it the same and not try to put any representation in it, and 3, and C, fix the cast as we know. We have the actor of the villainess has a bad reputation, and the main protagonist actor isn't doing her job very well, and actually bad mouthing the movie.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. And I sometimes also feel that movie directors might go too far in representation. So, do you guys have anything more to say?
I think it's kind of okay.
So, I think we believe that the Disney's live action remakes have become cultural icons in their own way. And today we have heard a lot of different views regarding this topic. So I think it's safe to believe that maybe the real thing about it is not in picking a side, but in realizing why this matters so much.